and we have talked about this for years with a lot of our teams here, that there are inflection points for a team, for a season, for an era of football. And I talked about it a lot on the pregame show. We talked about it after you left for the big wedding, that I really felt that this was a huge inflection point, not only for this season, but for the Matt Eberflus, Ryan Poles era. Yeah. You talk about culture all the time. It's a big buzzword. You like to use that C word, culture. We have it. Okay. You lost the Commanders game. There was a lot that went wrong in that game, not just the final play of the game, but you made a lot of mistakes in that game. How are you going to come out on the other side? We all know it's a cliche. Every team goes through adversity each and every season. But what do you do when you come across the adversity? Do you let it affect you, and do you let it bring you down? Or do you say that made us a better football team, and that was our taking off point? And we saw exactly what this team let the adversity do. They lost the Commanders game, and basically they got rolled in Arizona. So you can tell us all you want till you're blue in the face that you've got culture. It doesn't mean diddly if you can't win a road game in Arizona when you have more than 50% of Bears fans.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've talked about this a bunch, and I know it sounds repetitive, but this is who they are. They're a team that can beat up the lesser teams in the league, but when they step up in class, they struggle. And when they step up in class and go on the road, then it becomes an insurmountable barrier for them. And I thought that again, I didn't see the game live. I watched it this morning. It didn't look any better to me this morning than I'm sure it did to you live yesterday in the afternoon. But I felt that touchdown run with just seconds to go at the end of the first half kind of defined this game. And in large part, it kind of defined this season for this team so far. They didn't look ready, and it wasn't good enough. Like, the Cardinals were playing hard. They were playing to score, and for whatever reason, and I don't buy the coach's excuse, so what? You were using a defense to pressure the passer. That, to me, would make sense because they needed yardage to get into field goal range, and they were they were inside, 10 seconds to go. So, I would not blame them for wanting to run a defense that was designed to stop a pass, but somebody's got to make a tackle. And it just looked like the Cardinals were prepared and the Bears weren't. And I thought it was a defining moment for this game and for this first half of the season.
Yeah, so you want a couple of stats on that? I know Meller's got one too. I texted Hembo yesterday. And how about this? So they allowed the Hail Mary, as we know, to lose the game last week. And then on the very next half of football, you found a way to allow another big play to end the half of football. And I was saying, when was the last time a team in back-to-back halves allowed 50-yard plays to end each half? I couldn't even imagine. So I asked Hembo, when was the last time that happened? Here's what he texted back to me. He said, over the last 25 seasons, there have been a total of 16 touchdowns of 50 yards or more inside the final 15 seconds of a half, okay? So in the last 25 years, teams have only allowed 16 touchdowns of 50 yards or more with 16 seconds or left in a half. The 2024 Bears are the only team to allow 2 in a season, and they allowed it in consecutive halves of football.
It's crazy.
You understand how bad that is?
Yeah, and Meller's stat as well was about...
this is courtesy of Elias Sports Bureau. Amari DiMercado's touchdown run is the longest rushing touchdown given up in the last 20 seconds of the first half since the 1970 merger of the AFL and the NFL.
It's incredible, Meller, because everybody in that case is usually in prevent mode, and they're usually preventing a pass play. And no one in those final few seconds would ever allow a long run play like that. And it's just incredible on the way they have allowed the Commanders end and then that end, and to set historical marks yet again. You know, it's one thing at the beginning of a rebuild when you lose 14 in a row. And now, like, another one. Matt Eberflus has never won a road game on a Sunday. You know, let alone he's 3-18 overall on the road. But those 3 games have not even come on a Sunday.
Well,
he may end his Bears tenure, Waddle, with never winning a road game on a Sunday. He's only got 2 more chances here this year.
Yeah, I mean, they are making history, or they're being noticed for things that you don't want to be noticed for. You know, whether it's 4 collapses in games where you can't, like you described last week, like the 4 catastrophic losses, the fact that they lost all 4 of those games, it was a 1 in a million shot that they would lose all 4. Like, you are defining yourself in ways that none of it is good. And at the end of the day, to just think for the sake of being positive that it is all going to change and this has just all been a bad dream, I just think that you're buying into some sort of story that isn't going to have a happy ending.
Bad teams. Sorry, Silvy.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Mallory.
Bad teams talk about their culture and their accountability. Good teams show it to you without talking about it.
Yes.
And all week long, all we heard about was the culture and the accountability from Matt Eberflus. And I know, Silvy, you pointed out to us Ryan Poles on the pregame show before the game yesterday. What you saw at the end of the half on that very last play was defining of what their culture is. You cannot do that the week after you just had that heartbreaking loss on the Hail Mary. A complete meltdown by not just the call and the coach, but the players as well.
I'll say this as well, too. I think there is a significant lack of self-awareness up there. It really is. I mean, this is a professional sports franchise. Sometimes you want to try and make excuses for yourself because it's not going the way you want. But ultimately, I think, you know, honesty and self-awareness is something. Those are 2 commodities that are really important if you do want to get over the hump and to the top of the mountain. And I did hear Meller was playing me some of Ryan's game.
Play it. Play some
day.
of them. Yeah, play it.
All right, so there's 2 in particular about the loss to the Commanders that he talked about on the pregame show. This one was first about the emotions after the loss to the Commanders.
Yeah, I think we all, rode the roller coaster at that end of the game, and a lot of different emotions kind of came through. But I knew after that it was important for this team to gather itself, reflect on the tape and get back to preparation for Arizona, because it's important to not let one loss, leak into the next week. So I loved how the team responded, how they practiced this week. It was very focused. The precision was there. So I'm excited to see them play.
Play the one, Meller, too, about how he talks about how they responded in the 4th quarter against the Commanders was a championship caliber kind of response.
From a team perspective, it was interesting. Cole Kmet and I had a good conversation leaving the stadium last week, and that was what we can't lose from this. Was there was some really cool football being played in terms of the defense holding tight, getting stops. We played really good field position. I thought Torrey did an outstanding job punting, and then our offense was able to find a rhythm late in the game and basically take us down in 3 drives. One came up short at the 1, the other 2 scored to go up with just a few seconds left. So to me that's a championship caliber trait. In some of your worst moments, you can still find a way to execute and to put yourself in a position to win. And we can't lose that. And what it does for a team is it keeps belief, no matter what happens, that you can finish a game. So we got to tighten up. Obviously, the last few seconds there, that part hurt. But there were a lot of positives coming from this game.
So even if you buy all of that, okay, and we can go through some of that, but even if you buy all of that, and you come out and that's the way you play, after the so-called positive moments that occurred in a difficult, heartbreaking loss the week before, and this is how you play, you go on the road and get dominated 29-9, that doesn't feel, there's no championship feeling attached to any of this.
There's no winning feeling. Right. Forget about, how about a winning year under this regime? There's no winning feeling. And I heard Yurko's rant about Ryan Poles, and the self-awareness that you were talking about, Waddle. He better have a come to Jesus moment with somebody. Maybe it is Cole Kmet, because Lord knows maybe Cole Kmet's just a damn coach these days, because they don't want to use him on the football field, and he's just talking to him on the bus, and they're using him as a long snapper, and this is who he is these days. Lord knows, I don't know what's going on there. But Ryan Poles is letting all these things bring him down.
Yeah.
And Ryan Poles has gotten a lot of good coverage in this town. The fans have been behind him. The media, for the most part, has been behind him. But now some of these warts are starting to show up. We've talked about it a lot. We weren't a big fan of the moves he didn't make on the offensive line. I screamed from the mountaintop about the Ryan Bates trade to begin with. I didn't like the upgrade of Coleman Shelton at center. I didn't like just standing pat a lot at the offensive line. I thought you could have done a lot of these moves and helped the offensive line. He has been stubborn with a lot of these players. Velus Jones, the head coach of the football team. You continue to be stubborn. You continue to go to bat for these people. They're going to come for you next, Ryan. You know, like, it's one thing to continue to yell about Matt Eberflus. But if you don't be bold and you don't want to be shrewd, they're going to come for the general manager next. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And Ryan's got to wear this. He's got to wear it as much as anybody does, the decision to keep Matt this year. And as people have talked about, you should want to marry your new quarterback with his coach. They decided against that. The decision to go to bat with the offensive line, as you mentioned, it's something that we have talked about ad nauseum over the course of the last couple of years, especially with the rookie quarterback. You have so much invested in this young QB that you have to provide him with all of the necessary infrastructure in every way possible to help him get off to a good start with his NFL career. And right now, and I'm not shying away from being critical of Caleb, because I think that the last couple of games, as good as he was in London against the Jags, he has not been good at all in the last two games. His accuracy has not been good. He has drifted back into trying to do too much and playing too much hero ball. His accuracy needs to be, examined. Why is the ball sailing on him? There are a lot of things that you can be very critical about with regard to how the young quarterback is playing. But inside that building, they have to also come to the conclusion that they're doing all of the right things for him, because I get it. It's a 53-man roster. This is the first pick of the draft. You have your entire franchise for the foreseeable future invested in this kid and his level of success. You better be giving him all that he needs to develop him. And I'm not so sure right now that the answer to any of those questions, are you giving him enough to work with? I'm not sure the answer to that question is yes.
And then why should I have confidence that if they do spring Matt Eberflus, that they're going to get it right on the coaching front again? You're going to be on that circle of suck again that you just alluded to. We're now in the second year. You're going to ask your quarterback to learn another new offense with another new head coach when you should have done it last year. It doesn't mean you shouldn't change now, because it would be worse to stick with him. But they went out and they treated the offensive coordinator's job and their search for Shane Waldron like a head coach. The general manager was running point there, even though Matt Eberflus is the head coach and it's his staff. Poles ran point on that with Eberflus in shotgun. And they were interviewing these coordinators like they were head coaches. And if this is the best they can do, and this is the way the quarterback looks, and this is the way Keenan Allen looks, and this is the way Rome looks, and this is the way DJ Moore looks in this offense, and this is the way Cole Kmet looks, and they've all taken a step back, why am I to believe that Ryan Poles knows how to run a head coaching search?
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to give them the benefit of the doubt on that front. And when I talk about being self-aware, this isn't just, we need to come together, we need to man up and level up. Look, everyone in that building needs to do a better job at what they're being asked to do. All of the coaches, of course, and certainly the players as well. And I'm just confused as to why this was the type of performance they threw out there on the field after a game that kind of ripped your heart out. It did not look to me like they had moved on from last week's loss. And again, you were there live. I did not get a chance to see it live. They looked flat from my perspective. They did not look sharp. And I thought that final run for a touchdown at the end of the first half kind of summarized who they are at this particular moment.
The only thing I'll say to that is the defense did come out and it was a 3-and-out, I think, right away. The defense looked really good right away, and they stopped them. The Bears got the ball, and they were marching down the field, and they were picking up first downs. They were moving into scoring position, and as soon as they were in field goal range, they were close to another first down and a penalty. And then the penalty negates that gain. So they move it back. And right after the penalty, Caleb gets sacked again back at the 50-yard line. So they go from being in field goal range on their first possession to then getting sacked out of it after a penalty and a sack, and now you get no points. And now the Bears have scored 10 total points in 8 quarters of first quarter football. Think about that.
They've
scored twice in the first quarter in eight quarters. But, like, I thought they were getting off to a little better of a start. But, again, they shoot themselves in the foot because they're undisciplined and one penalty after another. And they just do things that undisciplined football teams do.
At the end of the day, they had 70 rushing yards. They averaged 3 yards per carry. They had 241 total yards and 9 points. 0 touchdowns against a defense that was allowing over 24 points per game. They were 3 of 13. I heard maybe Carm was right. It was 3 of 13 or 3 of 14 on third downs against the league's worst third down defense. And Caleb was 22 of 41.
Ugh.
And was sacked 6 times. Now, numbers are numbers. But, again, you had the good fortune of facing one of the league's less accomplished defenses and just could not get anything done. This
is why I've always said, and you've said it too, the record is the record, 4-4, but there are different shades of 4-4. Yes. There could have been a 4-4 with the arrow pointing way up, where everything's looking good. And we're seeing the quarterback progress where things make sense. It's the old saying that we repeat over and over ad nauseum, make it make sense. Nothing's making sense. Nothing. And this is supposed to be an up-and-coming team. This is far from an up-and-coming team. And again, when they preach until the cows come home that they have great culture, they're frauds.
Yeah.
They're complete frauds when it comes to their culture. Don't give me the culture BS when that's the way you show up after some adversity in Washington.
It sounded also that the interaction with Tyreek Stevenson was a little clunky, if I read this the right way, because, again, I wasn't here at the end of last week. But I heard the reports from Jay Glazer that when he found out he wasn't going to start, he stepped away from practice on Wednesday. And I know Courtney at length described how everything went down, but just kind of in summary, why would you be telling the player on Wednesday what your plan for him was? I
was going to ask you, should the player, no matter when he's being told, whether it be at the start at practice, hey, Tyreek, you're not out there with the ones, you're with the twos, should he adapt better in the moment?
Yes.
And now look, and like a lot of people said, well, he only left for a brief amount of time and then he came back once team periods start. But as I asked Courtney in the pregame and I asked Thayer, it's always frowned upon to leave practice for those reasons. You don't leave because you're not able to understand where you're supposed to take that information and just deal with it within practice.
That's fair. And absolutely, the players should handle the situation better. But from a larger perspective or a wider lens perspective, if you're trying to put the previous disaster from the Sunday before in the rearview mirror sooner rather than later to move on, why are you waiting till Wednesday to tell the player that he's not going to start? That just seems odd and clunky to me.
It's what I think it's the thing where both can be true, like you like to say. The players should be able to handle it better. But I also thought the most common sense way to do it is where Matt Eberflus said he had a one-on-one with Tyreek Stevenson. When you have the one-on-one with Tyreek Stevenson, you sit him down You say you effed up. We still believe in you. We want you to grow from the experience, but there are repercussions from things that you did. And one of those is you're going to be running with the twos for now. You can earn it back. You can build your way out of this sooner rather than later, but right now you're running with the twos. And we wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Yeah.
And if you have any questions for me before you leave this meeting.
Yeah, and the reason I mention it is because there was some sound from Caleb Williams after the game Meller and I were listening to, where he talked about how they should have been able to put last week's disaster, put it in the rearview mirror sooner rather than later, which is why, Jeff, I thought it was odd that the issue with Tyreek came up on Wednesday.
Here's Caleb from yesterday after the game.
I think early on in the week, I think we could have done better overall of bouncing back after that. I know it's a tough loss. It's tough regardless of who you are in the facility. If you're out there making plays or if you're making decisions up top. And so being better at that, understanding that we have many more games left after that. Been able to be one, be a family, and move on from that, and have the right leaders, and which we do. We have the right guys to do, things like that, which is bounce back from something like that. And we got to do it this week. We got to be better and move on quicker. We got to, have that 24-hour period, and from there move on.
Doesn't sound like that's how things unfolded.
No. So. And the rookie quarterback's got to talk about that.
Yes.
Again, the rookie. You know what I mean?
No, I know.
Why is the rookie more well-spoken than the head coach?
What? I don't know. Somebody's got to fill a bucket. That's what I got to think.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to start filling buckets.